Hey everybody, it's Jason Gallhoff with Teacher's Pension. Hey, the reason for this video is I've been getting a lot of questions asked to me. With it turning into spring here, people are starting to think about retirement. And so one of the biggest questions I get asked is for somebody that is going to be done on a specific date. So for example, the person I've got up here is our friend Jane Sample. She's married to John. Jane is a teacher. We're going to go into some particulars with her. She's trying to determine is if next year for the 24-25 school year, should she do a 110 that year? Or should she just work through the 24-25 school year and get the credit, the one additional year of credit, thus increasing her PERA pension for the rest of her life? And so what I want to do is kind of dig into that a little bit to kind of help you understand the process we use to help you make that decision, basically. So here we have Jane. Her date of birth is back in 1968. She is 56 currently. So the thing we're taking a look at is if she were to retire at age 56, she would retire in June of 2024. And then we'll look at double dipping in 2025. All right. Or if she just works straight through 24-25 for PERA, and we look at what her additional pension would be. So a couple of extra things about Jane. She started back in 1994. So she's finishing her 30th year with PERA and is trying to decide whether or not to 110 her 31st year or work it for credit. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at it from the standpoint of, there's different options when you go to retire from PERA. I'll go over this briefly here in a second, but it's whether or not you would like to have beneficiary options for your spouse, if you were to pass away. There's another video for that. We'll go over that at a later point. So let's take a look at it, from the standpoint of looking at these two options. So under this planned retirement piece here, this is if she was to retire from PERA in 2024. All right. She'd have those 30 years of service. I've got her at the top end of the scale for Weld County School District 6, which is Greeley. She's an MA 45, step 25, and therefore her highest average salary ends up being 104.5. 30 years of service represents 75% of that highest average salary. Thus, her pension, her option one pension would be $78,410 per year, or $65.34 per month. Now, if she wanted to make sure that she didn't leave her spouse high and dry if she were to pass away, she could choose option 2 and 3. But like I said, we can deal with that in a different video. Now, if she was to work the additional year, that 24-25 school year for credit, well, then she would retire with 31 years of service. Her highest average salary would go up a little bit because of the calculations would provide her with a little bit more. And then she'd also get an additional 2.5% of that highest number, or that higher number. So instead of having a $78,400 pension per year, she's going to have an $82,646 pension per year. That's under the option one amount. So we'll, for sake of argument, we'll look at option 2. It's a split in between. Option 2 is basically a lower amount. It's reduced from option 1 if you were to retire in 24 by $372 a month, or a reduction of $412 from option 1 if she was to retire in 2025. If she passes away under option 2, if she passed away before her spouse did, her surviving spouse would continue to receive half of this amount for the rest of their life. And so we'll just use that one for sake of argument, just to kind of take a look at it, basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a comparison between the two of these things. So the first thing that we have to do is we actually have to take a look at, we'll go over here to the 110 piece. So what we're looking at is here, we're seeing a $6,163 if she retired in 2024. Excuse me, there we go. So there's a $6,163 per month. And if she retired in 2025, that was at $64.75, as you can see right here, for the for the initial PERA amount. So if she did retire at the end of the 2024 school year, I'm sorry, the 24-25 school year, there's her monthly pension, which is right here, what that annual amount is. Now, obviously, if she retired then, under the first option, there is no pension received, obviously, during that second part. So what you'll see on this quick illustration is the first 3 years that you're receiving your PERA pension are going to be the exact same. And so, so if she retires in 25, 3 years are the same. If she retires in 2026 instead, you'll still see the 3 years the exact same. After that, it is eligible for an annual cost of living increase. It's a percentage, somewhere usually between 1 and 2.5, but it all is dependent upon the how fully funded the pension plan is. Currently, as of right now, I believe it's 1%. I'm going to put in 1.5, and it really doesn't matter because the calculation on the COLA is going to be the same, for both of those benefits, and so we'll just leave it at 1.5. So basically, what it shows is that in 2026, because she's still under the same amount, her annual pension under option 1 here, we're looking at about 74,000, but it'd be 77,700 under option 2. So she's going to make an additional $312 per month under that option, basically. Another $312 because it's the same. Now, you'll see it goes down a little bit because under this option 1, it's the first year it's going to get that little 1.5% cost of living adjustment. So instead of being $312 difference, it's $219. And then from there, every single year after that, it's going to get higher and higher and higher. Why? Because the 1.5% cost of living increase isn't only on the base amount, but it's on the increase over previous years as well. So it starts off being about $220. What we're looking at is after, in 2049, it's a difference of $300 a month, basically, or $3,600 a year. So that's what this piece over here on the right is, how much additional pension you're getting in that particular year if you were to work that last year for PERA credit as opposed to 110. Over that period of time, all the way up through 2049, under option 1, and I do not include this first year, and I'll explain why here in a minute, but we've got to compare apples to apples. So from 2026 all the way through 2049, under option 1, Jane would receive about $2,087,000 in pension from PERA over that period of time. Under option 2, she'd receive about $2,162,000 in pension over that period of time. That's a difference of $75,500, okay, of income. Pretty significant, not massively significant, but pretty significant. But let's go back. And you guys, if you may have seen my other videos where we talk about the 110, how we go about contemplating how to save during that period of time. That's kind of what we're doing here. We're saying, hey, under option 2, you work straight through and collect your pension. Under option 1, hey, for this 24-25 school year, we're going to shelter. We're going to shelter money over that period of time. So here's the $6,163. And if you're interested in seeing how this total illustration is put together, you'll have an option to click on that at the end to kind of go over the 20-minute video that explains how we come about this illustration. The fact of the matter is that 6,163, well, there's that starting in the 24-25 school year that she would then collect in that double dip time period. Under this illustration, basically, long story short, Jane would shelter about $114,000 over that double dip year. All right. So that's what we take a look at in the 110 piece. All right. So approximate money sheltered during the 110 year, if she chose to do so, $114,000 basically is what ends up being sheltered. And so, yes, what I will tell you is over the 24 years or whatever it is that we're looking at between 2026 and 2049, over those 24 years, yes, under the second option, Jane will collect about $75,500 more in income over that period of time, but she would not have $114,000 sheltered over that period of time. And here's the deal. Fact of the matter is that if Jane wanted an extra $312 a month, which would be the difference in that first year of full retirement between the 61, 63 that she'd still be receiving under PERA, or under option 2, it'd be 60. That's a difference of $312 a month. What I will tell you is if you want an extra $3,700 a year, okay, there's that $3,700. She'd be able to pull that off of this 114,000 and it would never run out of money. She basically creates her own pension above and beyond. How can I say she'll never run out? Because the distribution rate on that is anemically low. It's somewhere between 3 and 3.5%. So, the money that's in those plans that she shelters into, it'll earn probably twice that. And so chances are she won't even dig into the principal. She'd be able to collect the additional $312 a month off of the interest alone and still have $114,000 saving in the account. So long story short, should you work an additional year of PERA for credit, or should you 110? 90% of the time, you should absolutely do the 110. What's the 10%? Well, the 10% comes into play if you're retiring out of a shaded area into a non-shaded area on the PERA tables. This is PERA table 2. So if you're into learning about how to measure what your retirement income is going to be, it starts off here in the guide. You find out when you were hired with PERA, whether or not you had so many years of service, 5 years of service on January 1st of 2011. Long story short, you can figure out which table you're on. People that are retiring right now are either table 2 or table 6, mostly. We'll look at table 2 because I would say probably 80% of the people retiring now are on table 2. If, for example, our friend Jane here had 23 years of service at the end of the 23-24 school year and still wanted to be done by the 24-25 school year at the end of that one, she absolutely would not want to 110. Why? Because the increase is greater than 2.5%. The one that we were looking at was looking at a difference between 30 and 31 years. That's only a 2.5% increase. This one here is a, what is that, 4.8% increase? What I will tell you is if you need to get outside of the shaded area. And if that means working that last year for credit, you have to do that. Then if you can do one more year, maybe 110 year the year after that. But, the only time it makes sense for that last year for you to do it for credit is literally if you're getting outside of that shaded area. So tell you what, long story short, let me know if you got questions. Contact me. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text, reply to this, shoot a comment in this video if you want to. Let us run these types of illustrations for you. We can run the pension report to help you understand, what's it going to look like when you do retire, or, we can take a look at, well, what is a 110 going to look like for you? We can also tell you which retirement table you're on. Should you do the 110 or should you work last year for credit? Put us to work for you. There's no cost obligation to this. Just let us help. So once again, Jason Gallhofer with Teachers Pension of Colorado. I look forward to helping you out. Hey, like I said, click the video if you want to learn exactly how we go about figuring out how to shelter $114,000 without lowering your take-home pay. It's pretty cool.